Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the People's School for Marxist-Leninist Studies. Today is November 26, 2024, and today, in collaboration with the Electoral Commission and the Party of Communist USA, the People's School of Marxist-Leninist Studies will be having a post-election analysis of the 2024 presidential election. As a quick reminder before we begin class, the People's School for Marxist-Leninist Studies is a Party of Communists initiated school, so this does allow us to have a wide variety of views and topics. We are not strictly a party school, but a party-sponsored school. So today, for class, we'll be breaking this down into three different sections. We'll have a first section on what were some of the factors of why Trump won? What can we expect from a Trump presidency? And how do we react? What do we do?
All right. So section one, why did Trump win? So starting off, we're talking about the campaign run by the Democratic Party. So some of the issues that their campaign had is that some of the voter issues were ignored. So things such as the economy, Palestine, and of course Ukraine, which Biden is still sending arms to this day. There were also some ineffective tactics used by the Democrats, such as saying a vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Trump. The Republicans for Harris. Harris also saying that there would be no change between her administration and Biden's, as well as no unique qualifications or an original platform.
Say it again. Mark them again. Mark the children again. Do it again.
18 years old. 18 years old. Yusuf Hassan. 8 years old. Turn around and join the uncommitted delegates in the protest.
The economy was a prime concern of many that was ignored by the Democrats. Kamala Harris promised a continuance of, quote, normalcy of current affairs. For many Americans, that meant rising inflation that was driving the cost of food, fuel, and other essential goods even higher. Democrats appear to now be the party of finance capital and have completely abandoned the working class. In the vice president debate, J.D. Vance mentioned the economy more than Tim Walz did.
He intends to cut Social Security and Medicare. He intends to surrender our fight against the climate crisis, and he intends to end the Affordable Care Act. You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that, otherwise I'm speaking.
Moving on, we have some of the reasons that people gave as to why Kamala Harris lost, such as people in the U.S. were not ready for a woman president. The Democrats' platform was too far left, and they were being pressured by the minority far left constituents. Americans were, quote, not as enamored of the woke liberal agenda as the left-leaning media would have us to believe. And also, it was President Joe Biden's fault. He left too late. So, why did Donald Trump win? Well, to start off, of course, Trump's quote-unquote promises resonated with voters. So, some of the promises that he had on the campaign trail, of course, starting from the top, we had mass deportation. So, closing the border, upset with high border crossings, ending the American birthright. He also ran on ending wars, which are costly, imposing tariffs on imports, helping people afford, quote, bacon again, and the bitter mood around the economy. He also talks about tax cuts, the Federal Reserve's inflation fix, Raising interest rates meant more expensive borrowing for things like mortgages and car loans. Slashing governmental spending, healthcare reform without vaccines, as well as restoring a supposed two-gender system.
All right. Thank you, comrade. We'll now stop for our first round of discussion and questions.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. First, I want to say in that video you saw of Kamala Harris, where she was, speaking down to protesters, one thing she mentioned about Trump wanting to cut Medicare. Well, that kind of rings hollow when there's been a charge in the last few years here in New York of cutting Medicare, and it's been led by the Democrats. So how are you going to threaten workers that they're going to have stuff cut by Trump when y'all are already trying to do it? And she also mentioned, of course, Social Security cuts. The last time there was an actual bill that could have passed for Social Security cuts was a deal that Obama cut with a deal with Obama cut to tie Social Security to the chain CPI, which the Republicans voted against because they didn't want to give him a supposed win. There's so much that just doesn't, what they're saying doesn't add up. And I could go on, but I'll stop there for now.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to mention, it's something that almost nobody brings up, is that 4 years ago, Trump would have won, most likely, were it not for the fact that voting laws in so many states were changed under the pretext of COVID to allow for this massive mail-in voting. This is the reason why voting numbers were so high 4 years ago. It is. And people on both sides of the issue, Democrats and Republicans, all acknowledged prior to the election that mail-in voting favored Democrats. They all acknowledged it. And then for some reason, after the election, all the Democrats forgot. And all the Republicans not only forgot, but started latching onto these unhinged conspiracy theories about Dominion voting machines. So I think a bigger issue isn't so much why Trump won today, because he won, because he would have won 4 years ago, and because Kamala is just a dog of a candidate. Biden comes across as very weak. The real question is, why did he win 8 years ago? I've got opinions on that too, but just wanted to mention the thing about mail-in voting. I think that's really the reason why Biden won 4 years ago. And this is not a surprise to me that Trump won.
Okay, there's a different aspect of this. Those of us who actually see Trump as a predecessor of reactionary views, what happened in the South with the march, saying that they were good people, and they killed a person that was protesting against them. His constant calling everybody who was a Democrat a Marxist. People forgot that. I didn't. He kept saying this one's a Marxist, and they were not Marxists. Kamala Harris is no Marxist. So he was playing the anti-communist card also. I find that interesting. Those of us who saw him as proto-fascist, of all the candidates we have had since Goldwater in the 1960s, I just want to mention that we thought that people thought if you vote for the Democrats, that's going to stop fascism. And I want people to know it never has happened that way. 1932, 33, Germany. 3 candidates ran. Hitler for the Nazis, Thälmann for the communists, and Hindenburg. And remember, the one that won was Hindenburg, the moderate. And what did he do when he got in power? He gave power to the Nazis. So the moderates, the centrists, they never, ever stop fascism. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Angelo.
Piggybacking right off of what Angelo said, that's exactly right. And what do we see now going with the transition to the Trump administration? Biden and Harris have said, yeah, we're ready to do this transition. Let's go, full steam ahead. We're going to peacefully transition power to the same guy that we've been calling Hitler and a fascist for the last 9 months of this campaign. We're also starting to see the rise of QAnon-style conspiracy theories, where liberals are claiming the same things about Dominion voting machines being hacked that Trump and his followers claimed in 2020. And I also wanted to say that the point about the apologist saying that Harris ran too woke or too liberal of a campaign, too progressive, is so laughable when she was literally campaigning with the Cheneys of all people. It's hilarious.
Yeah, the most mind-boggling thing to me here is how like the Democrats managed to learn exactly nothing from 2016. Like you did some sleight of hand stuff to avoid like having to nominate someone who would have been popularly voted for 2016, Bernie Sanders here. I mean, I don't know. But like, and then you ran a candidate on some it's everything is fine. We don't really need to change much platform while like people that actually work for a living are living check to check. So like it's just like you made the exact same mistakes and you I don't know, you like to think that people that are like wielding that much power in society are like able to learn from simple stuff, but I don't know. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, comrade. I think the bigger question is they see even a mild social democrat like Bernie will upset their power and their profitability. So they'll more band together to stop him in 2016 and 2020, be it all powers that be or Obama making a phone call, than rather to have actually run or give a platform.
What did he say about like the Democrats supporting Medicare cuts in New York or something? I think he said.
It's been largely done through what is the collective bargaining process with public sector workers, but they've been ramming through contracts and trying to push contracts that include forcing retirees off of Medicare into a full Medicare Advantage plan upon retirement. And that is essentially the privatization of Medicare. Because Medicare Advantage plans are for-profit plans that don't pay out claims and forces people into substandard health care.
And also, don't forget that in 1996, Bill Clinton, with the Republican Congress, would have completely privatized Social Security had it not been for the Monica Lewinsky incident suddenly breaking out.
So basically, what I've been reading is that just now, details have been released that even the Harris campaign knew that they were going to lose to Trump because their own internal polling said that, he's flatly not a popular candidate. And it's pretty stark to understand that ever since Bill Clinton initiated the triangulation campaign to try and, triangulate on the supposed moderate voters that would always follow fair winds, they've always been running to the right instead of running to where the population is, with every single campaign progressing further until we end up with the Nazi Party and the Italian Fascist Party. But overall, it's just unsurprising because they try to run a incapable candidate and then decide to finish it off by trying to elect a candidate that dropped out in the 2016 primaries, who, literally dropped out before anything happened. Two completely unpopular candidates. No surprising they won.
Also, in the 2020 primary, she completely bombed in her own state. No one liked her.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the Democrats, they claim that we're like sliding into fascism or that Trump's gonna usher in fascism and voting for them is the only way to stop it. But over these past 4 years, I mean, trans people have been getting attacked or their rights have been getting attacked. A bunch of minorities have had their rights rolled back. And even after this election, I mean, they're running off a blank campaign or a campaign with nothing behind it. And I know now I see a lot of like Democratic talking heads saying that, yeah, like they ran too progressive. They scared off regular voters by supporting trans people. But even like regular people that voted for Trump, they'll be like, oh, you voted for a fascist. And when it's quite literally like how the class is saying, Trump, just off of being the wild card, he's saying the obvious that the economic situation is not good right now. And the Democrats are like, it's great, we promise, like, look at this. And that's just very evidently not the case. And now they're like blaming minorities, being like, oh, if you're a minority and you voted for Trump, this is what we hope you get what you voted for. And it's like, oh, like you guys are left, but you're blaming the voters and like you're basically siding more and more with these Republicans.
Also, as a more sobering note, basically the trans community has been used by both sides as a scapegoat, with people saying, well, I'd rather support a sensible person than someone who supports people using different gendered bathrooms or whatever nonsense they want to spout.
Yeah, one of the things that I don't see, that I have not seen anybody opine on, is the fact that I think there were a lot of voters that were so really upset and hated what the Democrats had been doing, that even if it was to their detriment, they wanted to vote for Trump to pay back what the DNC had done for us for the next 4 years or last 4 years. I'm not sure. No pundit is saying that, but it's just my opinion that there's a lot of that. The other thing is when they talk to minorities, some of them, like even this end of birthright, which means if your parents are foreign but you're born an American, you're still an American citizen. Even the minority population is upset about the border. And I think the reason they're upset is that they are in America and they don't want to let anyone else in. So there's some weird things going on here. And the other thing that's happening is that those people that actually voted for Trump, and these are organizations, and I came across 3 of these, that they said, okay, Trump, now we got you in. And they think that by them saying, now you need to do this, that, and the other thing, that he is going to listen. These are weird things I've never heard before. And even one of them was Scott Ritter, which surprised the heck out of me. He voted for Trump, and now he's out of campaign. Okay, we got you in, Trump. Now here's what we want you to do. I'm amazed. I just wanted to pass all that info on.
And yeah, there was also some other rather flamboyant online Twitter personalities. They're like, oh, we have to push Trump forward for this. And now we're like, I never thought leopards could eat my face.
First of all, like, I just want to say, I and my father have always hated Trump. So this is going to be like coming out of like full emotion. But like in this election, I've honestly just keeps wedging into me. It's that like capitalism is just the prerequisite to fascism. They will do anything to just keep what they have. For example, like take the Citizens United case in 2010, where they ruled that money is the equivalent form of expression to our voices. There is a price to information, but for example, like let's take like on Open Secrets, where you can see broken down like not just like political action committees, but like sectors like real estate, finance, medicine. You see like all these donations from like the real estate sector, and it just baffles me like how almost every election season, like there's like, for example, like with Trump in the 2024, at least with what I've seen, $275 million. And all that is just being funneled towards 30-second ads simplifying gender identity and other stuff. Like the amount of Cancun cruise ads I have seen down here was ridiculous. Just ridiculous. I feel like, honestly, yes, like there just needs to be restructuring the campaign finance in general. But you.
Yeah, I just want to say a couple things. One, most people in this country are not political at all, and I think we forget that most people don't know the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. They don't know what the right wing is. They don't know what the left wing is. It's really pretty nebulous for them. And I think probably a lot of them looked at the debate and were like, this guy's cooked. He can't run anything. And something else I was very interested in was New York. The Bronx totally flipped for Trump, which is shocking. But it's not so shocking when you remember all those busloads of immigrants they were sending up to New York City, and kicking the people that live there out of the hotels, the homeless and whatnot. And that was a hardship for those communities. There was a lot of people, and they were unfortunately a problem. And then the last thing is, I would encourage everyone, I'm going to put it in the chat. There's a sociology professor named William Dumhoff, and he has written a book for like decades now called Who Rules America? And it goes over who, makes up these parties, what parts of the bourgeoisie make up the Democrats, make up the Republicans. And I just think it's a good resource. Thanks.
I forgot who said it, but the quote was, I believe, America has one finance monopoly capitalist party, but in usual American extravagance, there's two of them.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to, I don't know if you'll cover it later, but this was just a very low turnout election. I don't feel like many people really flipped to Trump. He won with 2 million fewer votes than he lost with in 2020. And Harris the Democrats just didn't provide any kind of compelling message. I think Harris was down. I think it started at 14 million deficit to Biden in 2020, and I think it's ending up around like 10 or 11 million at this point. But just way less people showed up.
And I think also Trump had 2 million less than he had in 20.
Yeah, he won with 2 million less than he lost with in 2020.
And then I think Washington State was the only place where the Democrats did not lose votes as compared to 2020.
Yeah, I think this election, besides showing how awful the candidates that the U.S. constantly produces are, we know the major candidates are obviously far right. They're pro-fascist, pro-Nazi. They're just awful people individually and as a class. But it's more telling that a lot of the U.S. citizens just do not have a clue how their country is run or how the outside world is run, for example. They don't know what tariffs are. They don't know the basic policies of peaceful negotiation versus escalation in potential war scenarios. They don't know why people from outside the country, like in Honduras or Haiti, would pay attention to U.S. elections, because they don't have a clue how far-reaching their consequences are, policy-wise, to the rest of the world. And it's that same component of pure ignorance that is a key policy in warfare, where you just do not let your enemies know about vital information that could easily change the course of history like that through a better decision-making.
Yeah, I think a lot of what gets missed in this is that for the past few years, the American electorate has been voting for a candidate they see as a change candidate. Barack Obama ran on hope and change and all that other type of stuff. 2016 was the year that the American people wanted an outside candidate. They had the choice between Bernie and Trump. And now the outside establishment movement is with Trump. What people have to understand is that the Bernie Sanders group of people, they got all their hopes crushed. The MAGA people don't yet have that. Their guy got elected to president, and so they're still sticking with him. And then even with Kamala Harris, she's currently representing the administration, and people wanted change. The economy was crappy. We got into a bunch of wars that seems to be, about to go into a World War III at any moment. And so Trump seems like a blow it up candidate. And that's what I think the working class is looking for. They want change.
This election was not a low turnout election. Trump might have won with 2 million less votes than he got last time, but it's still the second most votes the Republicans ever gotten for president. Okay, like what Comrade said earlier, the turnout 4 years ago was because of mail-in ballots. And the lower turnout this year was because a lot of states got rid of the mail-in ballots exemptions that they had 4 years ago. Had those mail-in ballots still been available like they were 4 years ago, Kamala probably would have won, even with as bad as a candidate as she was. And I also want to add something with that Comrade Angelo said earlier. Or the Democrats were also running anti-communist ads against the Republicans. If I had $1 for every ad here connecting Sam
60 seconds.
Pirzolo, a local candidate here who's a Trump guy, to the Communist Party of China, I'd have $1 million because that's they flooded everything out here with anti-communist ads, claiming because he went to China for some trip, so therefore he was a communist. You know, at some point when Democrats are only offering Republican
90
light,
seconds.
they're gonna just vote Republican.
For time, we do need to move on to the second section, so please keep your hands up. We'll get to you in the next round. All right, so our second section will going to be, what can we expect from the new Trump administration?
When there's no progressive alternative, the people resorted to right-wing populism. And I think this is important for us to understand. This was one of the things that Jill Stein said post-election. And I think we need to understand that's what happened. The voters didn't have a choice for any progressive party, except Jill Stein. But of course, we have the problem with third party, trying to get them off the ballot. Go ahead. What can we expect from a Trump presidency? There's that Elon Musk and Trump. We can expect austerity programs. They're going to, cut down governmental spending. Well, our governmental spending, I would say the last figure I read was that 71% is benefits like Social Security and other. So if they're going to cut down governmental spending, that's where they're going to chop it. We're going to have capitalists, businessmen, and ideologies that are going to be our cabinet members as well as appointed officials. It is possible that Trump will have a chance to nominate 2 more Supreme Court justices in the next 4 years. And all of course, our progressive values are attacked. The biggest one is going to be the repression of free speech. It's already happening even under the Democrats administration. We can expect more. Even the Democratic Congress, or the House, passed a bill for Trump, allowing the investigation into not-for-profit organizations if they, in quotes, attack the current administration. Amazing. I mean, this whole segment of our decade will go down in history. Okay, obviously the repression of unions. We have seen that already, even under the Democratic regime. Continuance of a war economy. He may promise that he's going to end the war in Ukraine, but that has nothing to do with Israel. And for 2027, he has his eyes on the Taiwan-China episode. And, of course, you all know we have foreign policy run by businessmen, and not just Elon Musk. The other thing that I didn't put down here is what we call the DOGE. So this is where they're going to try and smash the budget. And one of the key ideas is to eliminate 50,000 career governmental employees. All right, go ahead, next one. Okay, so here are some what we would call fascist tendencies. These are from different pundits. You can call them pundits. They're all a bunch of different ones, analyzing different subjects and seeing based on what Trump has said, what he intends to do. So, according to them, plans are in the works to fire 50,000 career civil servants. Now, when we say career, it means that they have decades of experience. So I'm not sure if they're not replaced, the only outcome is that we're going to have the austerity programs, because there'll be nobody there to try and administer our 71% of benefits that we get from the current government. So, and of course, you all know he is deciding that he is going to roll back regulations which protect our clean air and water because they interfere with, in quotes, progress. He is instituting the biggest deportation effort in U.S. history. From, again, what we have read, everyone is saying that it cannot be done. However, we have to wait and see. People are already resisting. People are already getting behind the legalities and what they will do if an order comes down in their particular state to round up people for deportation. I am absolutely hopeful that all of the people that say it just can't be done are correct, but this is the starting point. And he's already said he may have to mobilize local police forces against the citizenry, especially and this was especially as far as deportation goes. But I mean, that could be anything, or round up protesters. Who knows? And here's the big one. I thought Trump claims right now that the biggest threat to the U.S. are from within, not. And he's right, I think, in a way, because we don't really think that the world is against us. But anyhow, he thinks the biggest threat is from within, warning that he will use the National Guard on its own people. And will the U.S. security institutions now installed be willing to exert force on its own citizens? And I added that because that's what, again, what one of these pundits were saying. What are people going to do? I mean, now we're talking about people against citizens against citizens, and we're going to have to watch for that. Okay. Possible Trump appointments. The Swamp Creatures Electric Boogaloo 2. The Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. He's a hedge fund CEO and founder of the Key Square Capital Management. Now, understand, a hedge fund is what got us in trouble in 2008. Basically, what you do is you have all these properties that you are in debt to. You have loans, say, on 8 properties, and use them as assets to get another property. And that's what caused the collapse in 2008. If one of those come due, all those assets you said that you could use to take care of that are also in debt. So, quick note on that. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He is a Gusano, Florida senator. If you want to know what Gusano is, it means that he is anti-Cuban. His family comes from the elite from Cuba. And of course, their property was nationalized. He supports aiding Ukraine and Israel. That's going to be interesting because according Trump isn't as far as Ukraine goes. Was vice chair of Senate Intelligence Committee and was on appropriations and foreign relations committees. Expect more misery on Cuba and hawkishness towards China. And this is our Secretary of State. All right, Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, Hawaiian Congresswoman, former Bernie Sanders surrogate, former Army Reserve officer, and possibly prior intelligence officer, probably in the armed forces. So, again, it doesn't matter what credentials you have. It doesn't matter what experience he has. If you're a loyal Trump, you're going to get a position. Go ahead. Okay. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, former major in the Army National Guard, past controversy over potential insider threat due to tattoo linked to white supremacists. I wonder if he has it removed. Against DEI, women in the military, and past alleged sexual assault in 2017 that was settled in a settlement. Attorney General Pam Bondi replaces Matt Gaetz, who everyone brought out all of the charges against him, and he had to resign his candidacy for Attorney General. Former Florida Attorney General, and works for the American First Policy Institute. I think that's right up there with the Heritage Foundation. Correct me if I'm wrong. All right, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Billion Chairman and CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. All right, so again, a businessman that is going to be conducting the welfare of our Commerce Department. Okay.
Hi, I just wanted to comment on a couple of the ideas that might be coming down the Trump administration. And I want to say this as someone who lives on a grass farm that my uncle runs in very much agricultural area of North Carolina, big Trump country. All those people that were voting about, concerned about the border and immigration and things like that. If any of those policies get enacted, the agriculture sector collapses. Any of the serious, well-intentioned like farm owners around here, they're not voting for deportation. They know the labor force that they need. And that is true in a variety of sectors. While the American population has been miseducated for decades about the role that immigration has always played in this country and will continue to play in this country, the media, both Democrat and Republican, have made a lot of lies about that, and have spun this narrative that immigration is here to ruin jobs, destroy communities and whatnot. In rural communities, if it is not for rural populations, I don't know how we survive. I really don't. How we get any development done, because it is true. There's no farms without immigration labor.
Thank you, Comrade Cody. Another interesting thing is when all the tariffs were put on China, China no longer was importing soybeans from us. They instead turned to Brazil for that, and basically the soybean industry in this country has collapsed because of that. Interesting little fact.
I just want to make one other point. China is also deeply connected to a lot of the big farm groups. The biggest agricultural business in this state is Smithfield. Smithfield is owned by Chinese business interests. So if Trump puts tariffs up, that could dramatically impact our biggest ag businesses.
And expect all those prices to go to the consumer.
Right. I had my hand up on the last section. Just a small correction. Actually, Trump did surpass his 2020 votes, I think actually by 2.5 million. So he actually did get more votes this time around. Yep, look it up. Just happened. It's just on the news. But why did that happen was a lot of people actually just put in his name and just ignored the rest of the ballot. And I know I mentioned this before, but that's why we see a lot of the amendment on the ballots actually passing that were more progressive. I know in Missouri, giving abortion rights to women passed, and also increasing minimum wage passed as well in the state of Missouri, where they voted for Trump. And this is similar in the state of Kansas. And by the way, yeah, that's another state that's going to be detrimentally hurt, as it was in 2016 by the tariffs against China.
60 seconds.
That's a big factor of the Kansas economy is soybeans. And also, yeah, Tulsi Gabbard is a chameleon. Do not trust her at all. Her whole entire history is very shaded. And She was basically just part of a cult. So you wonder who's really making the calls when she's in those positions of power.
Also, she's got some very interesting relations with Prime Minister Modi of India and the BJP party there as well. Quite interesting.
So talking about Trump, if he really had the power to deport all the immigrants, the economy would collapse because like every basic industries, like they'll just hire illegal immigrants because they don't have to pay them as much because then they'll just deport them if they, if they get mad. Also talking about Harris talking about telling immigrants they need to vote for her because they're going to get deported. I know lots of immigrants who are really racist against people who just got here, and they say stuff like Peruvians, I hate them. I'm like, why? I told this one kid, and he's like, because they're monkeys, he said. And they hate the immigrants that come right after them. Right when they get here, they're like, I made it. Let's go. I hate everyone else.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the old individualist mentality. I got mine, screw everyone else.
There's a phenomenon. Picture someone who is against the wall and know they're going to lose. Well, they're going to take down everybody because they already know they're going to lose. And so this is the thing. People that were so upset and really were angry as far as the DNC administration, it's easy to vote for someone who's going to, what do you call it, defeat the DNC. Only on the pretext is, even if it hurts me, I am so mad with the DNC, I'm going to vote for Trump. Does that explain it?
Yeah, I guess so. What policies, like the Biden administration and everything?
Well, yeah, because they ignored all of our, concerns as far as inflation goes and gas and food, and they just felt betrayed by the DNC.
60 seconds.
And they were looking for revenge. Now, like I'm saying, there is not one pollster that has said that. I just feel that is something that should be considered, period. That's all.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, another reason why the Democratic Party lost and is probably going to have trouble with these national elections is, they had a coalition under Obama that included both working class people, but also, Muslim Americans and the whole thing with Gaza, and kind of the way the Democrats have been neglecting to offer anything to Latin Americans or Black Americans other than to kind of say, what is your alternative, right? Just to vote for the racist guy has really backfired. So that, that coalition really did not show itself in this election. The Democrats seem to have been specifically trying to get suburban Republican voters instead, and said something along the lines of, for every working class voter we'll lose, we'll gain 2 in the suburbs. So obviously those people tend to vote for Republicans anyway. But yeah, it seems like they're going to need some either to go back and try and rebuild that coalition or build a new coalition.
Thank you, comrade. But yeah, that coalition was immediately broken up after Obama got elected in 2008. They did nothing else with it except maybe keep the emails for a list to use in the future. And they did indeed offer something to people. Hillary Clinton had hot sauce in her purse. Comrade Angelo, you have the floor.
Yeah, remember Bernie Sanders, what he said 2 days ago. He told the Democratic Party that they have to make a choice. To go back to what they were during Roosevelt's time, a party that represented unions and the working class, or they're going to have to choose the other direction, corporations. He mentioned that. I don't know if you all know that. I find it interesting because I think what we do need is a third-party movement that is influenced by the labor unions and that has in it all the oppressed who are not represented in the Democratic Party anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Angelo. So I know we do have a lot of hands up, but for time, we do need to move on. So we will go to our last section. So our final section is, how do we react? What do we do? Where do we go from there? Or one could even say, what is to be done? For this section, Comrade General Secretary Joe, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. And this is a statement from the Secretariat of the Party of Communists USA on the election of Donald Trump. On November 5th, 2024, Donald Trump was elected as the 47th President of the United States of America. This came as a shock to many of the liberal elite, but to regular working class people, this was far from a surprise. As capitalism is in decline, neither bourgeois political party will be able to fix a fundamentally broken system. However, a majority of voters believed that the economy would improve under a Trump presidency, and that's why they voted for him. As the Green Party's candidate, Dr. Jill Stein, stated, there is a vacuum in the people's electoral choices. The fact that there is no progressive alternative meant that the people resorted to right-wing populism, as we saw before. While the Liberal Democratic Party and the forces of social democracy are opposed to right-wing populism, and by extension fascism, they are objectively unable to formulate an effective defense against it. The extent of reaction that will occur under the second Trump administration is yet to be seen, although I'd say now we're starting to get a better picture. But we can reasonably expect, based off of his words and fascist-minded associates in Wall Street, that the gateway to fascism has been opened further. As communists, we understand that fascism is the open, terroristic dictatorship of the most reactionary, most chauvinistic elements of finance, that is, monopoly, capital, and that is the definition from Dimitrov at the 7th Congress of the Comintern. In order to successfully fight monopoly capitalism and the fascist movement which emerges from it, workers and progressive people of the United States must build what we call a labor-led anti-monopoly coalition. We have already seen with this election cycle that independent organized labor is beginning to turn away from the two-party duopoly, now that it has become clear that neither the Democratic nor Republican Party leadership is interested in the concerns of workers. The labor-led anti-monopoly coalition will follow in the footsteps of the Farmer Labor Party, the Progressive Party, and the All People's Democratic Front. It will be a formation of all progressive elements in American society led by organized labor. And those three groups there, they're from anywhere from 100 to 80 years ago now. Unfortunately, we haven't really had a strong anti-monopoly coalition movement since the Progressive Party of Henry Wallace. But I guess in a future class, we could talk in more detail about those examples. The policies of this labor-led anti-monopoly coalition include popular progressive reforms, namely expanded access to health care, democratic electoral and judicial reforms, such as protection of third-party formations, price controls to fight inflation, rent control and expansion of public housing, repealing the Taft-Hartley Act to empower organized labor, and moving the money from the military-industrial complex to fund these reforms. We're spending $800 billion a year on the military. And with the election of President Trump, we are now in danger of backsliding in terms of our civil liberties, like freedom of speech, press, and association, as well as our labor rights. These rights were hard won by our forefathers, and we should expect to have to struggle as well to maintain them in the coming years. It is the duty of all Americans to fight for the democratic rights on which our nation was built. The most effective way to channel the energy of this struggle will be through the form of the labor-led anti-monopoly coalition. And again, that's from the Secretariat of the Party of Communists USA. And just a bit more details on labor-led anti-monopoly movement coalition. The purpose is to lead the progressive voice of the people, to advocate for coalition building, namely through outreach to independent labor unions, other progressive organizations, and progressive third-party organizations. And of course, with any coalition, its strength is based on its unity. So once such a coalition is developed, it will need to determine its purpose and unity, which means specifically defining issues on which to unite, determining priorities, and determining methods of work to accomplish those priorities. And ideally, this coalition could become a force by the time of the midterm elections in 2026. That would mean advocating its own candidates, supporting active progressive candidates who fit the agenda, and national campaigning.
Thank you, General Secretary Joe. We'll go to our last discussion round.
Okay. There's a couple things you can tell what Trump's doing. Trump has both nominated a nominally pro-labor Republican Secretary of Labor, while at the same time naming Elon Musk to this new Department of Government Efficiency, which completely contradict each other. And of course, Elon Musk has an active lawsuit against the National Labor Relations Board trying to declare it unconstitutional. So you could see almost a nod to labor that, working class that supported him, with the Secretary of Labor put his real motives there with bringing Musk into a unofficial government position. That's all I got for now.
Yeah, I just had a question because I know we brought up the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, a few times. I wanted to ask what role we think that's gonna play in the next presidency. Because like, for example, I saw on TikTok, and I haven't done much research on it, so I don't know if this is asinine or if it's true, but like I know I saw some people comparing DOGE to like the precursor to the Gestapo. I don't know if that would be correct or if that has anything, or if it's just your run-of-the-mill austerity.
So I am actually a federal employee. I can give a slight answer on that, in that partly I do think that he's gonna have both, because it's Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, who's another billionaire that's going to be supposedly running this new department. I do expect austerity in a lot of federal departments and cutting of budgets. At the same time, the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, almost seems to be similar to some kind of meme that Elon Musk would find funny. But that's just my personal opinion. General Secretary Joe, did you want to respond as well?
Yeah, in regards to immigration, that is one area to me where it's just pure theatrics on the part of the parties, because neither of them have any interest in actually stopping immigration or doing anything with immigration. I want everybody to remember one thing. Donald Trump has a long way to go before he's deported anywhere close to the numbers that Obama did during his administration. Obama deported more people than any other president in history. I think he deported more people than Bush and Clinton combined. So people should remember that. Thank you.
Let me be clear. I also drone bombed more people than anyone else.
Yeah, I also just want to add that the discourse ever since Trump has gotten elected, Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing amongst the liberal class. And the way that they have spoken about Trump and his supporters has been, they've called them deplorables. Joe Biden called them garbage. A lot of it is just the snobbery from the liberal elite class and the unwillingness to listen to what people actually care about that is the result of this. Whenever you sit up there and you tell them that eggs don't really cost that much, you're laughing in working class people's faces to tell them that the economy is good when it's bad. And so that's what I feel is the reformation on this election, is the fact that these so-called experts sat here and talked down to working class people for years and years without listening to what they wanted. What other option do they have other than to reject those people that lie outright to their faces?
Thank you, Carmen. One thing I also want to say is I regularly interview people both for permanent residency and naturalization. There's been a consistent understaffing all over immigration, as well as there's just not enough money to either get the courts going to get immigration cases through it, to hear all these different cases for asylum. So for one, never mind just the resources, I'm not even sure they're going to get the funding to address any of this or even get close to the scale of deportations that they're talking about. But that's just my opinion there.
I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on the labor aspect of the anti-monopoly coalition.
Go ahead.
That's not really coming from nothing. If you look at the election, lead up to the election this time around, there were multiple unions, independent unions, which chose to not endorse the Democratic Party, which is historically a really unusual thing, actually. So, for example, the UE and the local 3000 of UCW, which is actually in the Seattle area, I believe, as well as the firefighters union, did not endorse Democrats. And the UE actually called for the formation of a labor party, of a third party movement supporting labor. And I think we're seeing even more of that after the election, where perhaps some unions kind of hedged their bets and said, okay, we'll support the Democrats in case they win. And now that they lost, they're free to speak their mind. We see that with the UAW, with the statement Sean Fain put out after the election, where he basically slammed the Democrats, despite the fact that he had endorsed Kamala Harris before the election. So I think there's a real impetus for this sort of third-party movement at this point from labor.
So I do want you, our comrades here, to notice our government really is closer to a totalitarian dictatorship than they make out the USSR and China to be, considering all the government officials are non-democratically elected by basically someone else, the president and his lackeys, effectively. And I'm also curious to know, a lot of the policies that Trump is recommending or saying he'll perform are just logistically impossible, or if he somehow does fulfill them or implement them, I really doubt it's going to help any of the industries. It's more than likely it's like what Comrade said about agriculture collapsing. I don't think it's just agriculture. I think it's going to be other industries too that will slowly die off as a result of all that.
I wanted to speak on the apparent contradictory nature of the Trump appointments, because I heard somewhere that the reason why that's the nature is that Trump is trying to make it so that no one, so that the cabinet is not one-sided, so that no one faction or coalition can get enough power within his cabinet to be able to do what they want, and that Trump will have to be the common factor between everybody that he appoints. Maybe this is giving Trump a little bit too much credit. Maybe this isn't going to work out as much as it sounds like. I don't know if it's going to be a good thing or bad thing or for who, but that's what I heard. So I thought I'd chime in with that.
Let's see here. I heard that some people saying that Tulsi Gabbard is a good sign because he opposed to interventions such as aid to Ukraine and the Afghanistan war, and that's a good sign. It would be a curtailment of U.S. wars abroad.
Well, first, I'm not sure how much Tulsi was against Afghanistan. She flat out supported the war on terror. He mentioned immigration and how that would affect the agricultural industry. I want to stress that there's a major reason why the agricultural industry depends so much on migrant labor. And that's because due to a compromise with the Southern Democrats in the 1930s, agricultural work was exempted from the Fair Labor Standards Act and the National Labor Relations Act, and they have no legal right to organize. Okay, and that was done because predominantly that work at the time was the Moshiach workers in the South. So it's a vestige of essentially Jim Crow that's still left. And it's why migrant labor is such a high I mean, almost all of agricultural labor at this point. And of course, the Democrats aren't really serious about the deportations, and they back these immigrant workers. Why? Because they want to use them for cheap labor, for exploitation. Okay, they use them to exploit them to the worst degree. And that brings down labor costs everywhere. So as much as they claim to be pro-labor, they really aren't.
I guess the negative first, but I mean, yeah, I think it is against, or we should be standing up for immigrants on that. You know, like, yes, there's of course the degree that Democrats do it too. The Republicans get most of the blame for it. I don't think that matters so much. I think the bottom line is we do see on a silver lining, we see unions actually starting up. In fact, they've been up not last year, but in the last 3 years before that, unionization and local creation has been up. And that's a plus for us, as we say, like what the General Secretary just said. This is something that's actually quite practical to create a third party. Remember how the Republican Party started under Abraham Lincoln. And that was a working class movement too. And you know, that's where we have to be looking for when it comes to solidarity with the with immigrants. Because I think myself included, I know friends that know people that are illegal immigrants, and you don't want to see families broken, but that creates a story for us to start, you know, working with the foreign-born to unionize, and this is where we really see a third-party wedge that we can create. Unlike the, what do we say, the gusanos, like Marco Rubio, which, remember where that word, what it means, it just means worm, because of what he is. And so we have to be thinking about that. I had some more to say, but let's let her speak.
Yeah, to Comrade's point about some of Trump's appointments, the thing that we have to look at is the fact that there were a couple of unorthodox appointments: Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, and Matt Gaetz. Matt Gaetz is down. The other three will not be confirmed. Pete Hegseth has some sort of sexual assault scandal. The deep state or the so-called establishment is never going to let Tulsi be confirmed, and I doubt that RFK will. So all of those people will be replaced by what he himself would call swamp creatures or the establishment. I don't see anything unorthodox about Trump's appointments. They're just going to be replaced by war hawks, neocons, and austerity Republicans. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at a Reagan administration. It's just got updated rhetoric.
Yeah, I just want to correct something Conrad said. Labor organizing is not up. It is still down. It is higher than the peak of the pandemic, but it's still a small fraction of what it used to be. Even the year that the Amazon workers at JFK 8 with 8,000 workers in that warehouse won their unionization bid, percentage of workers in unions fell. Labor is not on the rise. I mean, look, it's covered more. You see a lot of it, more of it, but just so overall, I think less than half of the annual union elections that there was 40 years ago, and the majority of these elections are in small workplaces that have less than 100 workers. Labor organizing is not on the rise, unfortunately.
Thank you. I think that the liberals' complete ineptitude and fecklessness in this election is going to bring us into, like we said with the austerity programs, this Department of Government Efficiency, these horrible things the Republicans are going to be doing. It's going to be a rough couple years. It definitely is. I just think that that's inevitable. However, what that does is it provides us an environment that is ripe for political agitation and building that anti-monopoly coalition that we're talking about. And I think that the moment is ripe, and it's our duty to be steadfast and grasp it while it's here now.
Really quickly, the Republicans have been passing these kind of draconian immigration laws statewide before they, have been able to do anything federally. An example recently is in Florida, where they passed an E-Verify law that made it a felony for employers to actually employ undocumented immigrants, and it caused such an issue with their agriculture that they basically had to back down on the law and go to immigrant workers and try and convince them not to leave the state and to tell their people that they weren't going to actually enforce the law because so many of their constituents were going to be put out of business by it. So it is an example of how when they try and implement it, it causes such chaos that it often fails.
I just wanted to say one major thing. We have a chance now to probably the first major step in building that anti-monopoly coalition. Okay, there's a large campaign that's growing. We got in from the ground up. When I say we, I mean Labor United, Educational, Legal, Little. And we're trying to bring all the other mass orgs on board, and we're working on that. Right now, there's a campaign going on called Public Rail Now. It is a campaign to nationalize, not just nationalize the railroads in the United States, but to do it under what was in the model of what was called the Plum Plan. And it was well, we can't really get into that. The next 2 months, I have religious full away the process. We'll get into that. And please, I recommend everybody here to get on at least one of those nights. Next week is going to be on the case for Public Rail. We're bringing in the lead national organizer from the Public Rail Now campaign. Next Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. The following Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern. I recommend everybody that's here be on that, one or both of those policies. But this is the first major step in a fight against monopoly, because what are the railroads? There's 6 monopolies that have formed together to become a giant cartel. And this is our beginning of our fight. And the last time this fight took place, though unsuccessfully, it led to the development of the Farmer Labor Party. So everybody, please come on board. And this is a major campaign. We need to move forward.
As well, if anyone is interested on some more information about this, I do strongly recommend check out the podcast View from Left Field, our 4th episode where we talked with Adam from Public Rail Now.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak about the laws in Florida. The laws in Florida are such that, like, if you are undocumented and you are injured in that state, if you go to the hospital, you could possibly face deportation, which has led to a pretty much mass exodus of most of the immigrant population there. And I want to say it's 22 or 23, whatever. I think it was Hurricane Ian that completely leveled Fort Myers Beach. They're still not completely rebuilt from that because they can't get workers to rebuild since passing these laws.
So with that, we do need to go to our wrap-up section and our announcements. So New Outlook Publishers is our online publishing store, and for an update on that, I will turn the floor over to Comrade.
Yes, please visit our partner publishing house, New Outlook Publishers. You can find the website at newoutlookpublishers.store. Our latest release, Volume 4, the 2024 edition of the Communist, the Ideological Journal of the Party of Communist USA. There's a lot of great articles in this issue. I'd say our cadre have developed their writing skills a lot further than they have in the past, and I think each year it's getting better than becoming a better issue than the year before. So please check that out. And of course, the first article we shared online created a bit of a stir. So I definitely recommend checking it out.
Thank you, Comrade. And we'll go to our closeout song.
We want no condescending saviors to rule us from a judgment